Hey, we are in a series, How Not to Be a Jerkface, and we kicked it off last week by challenging everybody. We just owned it and said, listen, at the end of the day, every single one of us on some level, we're a jerkface. And we said, hey, the first step in kind of overcoming that is to serve other people, to do good. In fact, one of the things that we said last week was it's not enough to just follow the rules. We have to do what's right. And we did that by doing some stuff in the community. And I want to show you a few pictures, some creative ideas. I love what we've been doing, and here's a few of them. This is it. Somebody just bought some food. I don't know about you, but I love food. So that's a great thing. The next one is awesome. I would love to pull up at a gas station. When I saw this picture, I started driving around. I didn't find that one, unfortunately, but hey, free gas is awesome. The last one is this. Man, if you're hangry, this is manna from the gods right here, okay? If you're like mad and you're like, I'm hungry, you show up, you're like, oh, Jesus does love me. Thank you. I mean, that is awesome. I love that. That's just a few of the ideas we're doing. Really, keep doing it. Really, we're excited about giving shoes away. We want to be able to give hundreds and hundreds of shoes away, so we're excited about that. Continue to do that. You can pick up some cards as you leave today. But as we talk about jerk faces, I got to tell you, one of the biggest jerk faces in my life was a seventh, and eighth grade teacher. That's right, I said seventh twice because I was smart and they asked me to stay longer. But anyway, she was a science teacher. She was fanatical, and she just could not stand me. And that was okay because I couldn't stand her either. So we were good. Like, we just mutually agreed that we didn't stand each other. And she made my life miserable in that she would pick on me. At least I felt that way. She would call me out. Like, she'd be like, hey, what are the questions that Nick would have no clue? Nick, you didn't raise your hand. Let's call on you. It was a terrible thing. And in fact, I always felt like she graded my papers harder and stuff like that. It was just a frustrating season in my life. Did anybody have a teacher that they felt like they did not like them growing up? Yeah, this service is so much better. First service, a bunch of punks, okay? Like they're like, no, my high school was great. It was awesome. Yeah, whatever, okay? Yeah, so I grew up. I had some great teachers. Matter of fact, I had one teacher, Miss Beck, just changed my world. But like so many people, you have people in your world, maybe as a teacher. Maybe it's somebody different for you. Maybe you didn't have teachers. Like, you had great people in your world, but you had a coach. You had a coach that just, you know what? They were in a position of power and authority over you like the teacher was for me, and you just felt like you got the raw deal. Like I had a coach that their kid was on the team, and he started above me in football practice. That kid was just not nearly as good as me, at least in my world. And it was so frustrating because he had power and authority over me, and I couldn't do anything. I felt so powerless. So maybe it's a coach. Maybe growing up, I don't know, maybe it was your parents. I mean, we're welcoming sixth graders and a whole deal, and we're so glad you're in here, but can we just be honest that growing up, sometimes your parents, they're just not always the best in the world. Like, there's sometimes that you look at it and you go, you know what, I can't stand my parents. Anybody have that? That was smart. Don't raise your hands. Yeah, because your parents are right next to you. Yeah, that was a test. Y'all passed. Good job. Yeah. No. We do that. Like, I did. I'll be honest. Like, I don't live with my parents anymore, so I can say it. Mom, Dad, I love you. But, man, there were some moments that they had all the power and all the influence and all the control. And I felt powerless. And it was frustrating. And I was angry. And I was mad. And I got to be honest, I didn't always handle it the best way. Maybe for you, it's parents. Maybe it's a boss. I mean, I don't know where you're at, but my assumption is like everybody's had that one boss that didn't treat him well, that didn't treat him right, that kind of picked on him, that wasn't just always kind and considerate, that just didn't always give you the weekend off, didn't always understand you, that many of us, we've had bosses, or maybe right now you have a boss that again, if you're being honest, it's kind of a jerk face. He's kind of a jerk face. She's kind of a jerk face. And the struggle is, and the tension is, it's not just that they're a jerk face, but it's they have all the leverage, and they know it. They have all the power. They have all the authority over you, and they know it, and they leverage it against you. At least that's the way that it feels, doesn't it? And we have become a culture, and we have become a society that does not know how to handle that. We have struggled. We are a broken nation right now. Again, you look at the ultimate authority and what it's done to our country right now. If you struggle agreeing with me, just look at politics right now, right? I mean, you have half the country that's just excited. You have the other half that's just angry and frustrated. Because somebody in office, whether it be the president or the senators or the House or the governors or the mayor or whatever that is, but somebody in office has all the power and authority. And it's frustrating. And it's dividing. And all you got to do is go on Facebook and kind of figure out where people are at and what people say and the whole deal. And our country is broken in so many ways. Our culture is broken in so many ways. Our families in so many ways are broken because we have lost something fundamental in how not to be a jerk face. And today I just kind of want to unpack it. I want to unpack what it looks like to take that next step and how we cannot be a jerk face and how we can go back and reclaim something I believe God has given us. Now, as we start off, I want to give a disclaimer really quickly. We're going to say some stuff, and at the end of the day, it's going to be to Christians. In fact, let's put the first verse up. It's 1 Peter chapter 2, if you got a Bible, but it says this, "Dear friends." Now, here's the deal. If you're here today and you're a Christian, he's speaking to you. If you're here today and you're not a Christian, we are so glad you're here today. In fact, one of the things that we say is you can belong before you can become, and you don't have to agree with us. You don't have to believe the same thing that we believe. We're good. But if you're here today and you say, "Nick, I don't know where I'm at with God," that's cool. You don't have to do anything we're going to say today. Like, you can try it. I would say that your life's going to be better for it, but at the end of the day, you don't have to do it. But if you're here today and you say, "Yeah, Nick, I believe in God. I'm a Christian." Today we're going to read something that I believe is maybe one of the most offensive scriptures of all the Bible. And we're going to get there. But Peter starts off and he says, "Listen, dear friends, I urge you, as foreigners and exiles, to abstain from sinful desires which wage war against your soul." He starts off and he says something so incredibly important. He says, listen, there is a battle going on. There is a war going on, but it is not outside of you. We live in a culture that wants to change our circumstances, right? If we had a different president, the world would be better. If we had a different boss, I'd get along better. If my spouse was nicer to me, I wouldn't get so angry. If my kids behaved better, then I'd be more happy. If I had more money, it's all about the external circumstances that we live in. But Peter starts off and he says, listen, let me be really, really clear. The war that's going on inside of you, it's in you. It's not about your circumstances. It's not about what you're walking through, that you have a war that's being raged, but it's in your soul. And the reason that you have anger, the reason that you have frustrations, the reason that you have tensions, the reason that you're so frustrated with the world and life has very little to do with your circumstances and everything to do with who you are. Because the war in our culture, the war in our families, the war in our jobs, everything, very, very real. But Peter starts off and says, listen, let me just push you, let me caution you really quickly. Your temptations, I think it's about your external stuff, but it's not. It's a war, all right. But you have some desires. You have some things in you to be right. How many relationships, marriages, jobs have been blown up because somebody just had to be right? They wouldn't swallow their pride to be wrong. You want to be in control. You can't relinquish it. You want to be large and in charge, and somebody's got power, and somebody's got authority over you, and you've got to take control of that, and you nuke something, you blow something up. There is desires in all of us. He says, listen, I'm about to say something offensive to you. You just need to understand what is in you that's going to come out when I say this to you. It is evil. Your pushback to this is not going to be for your best interest. It's going to be for what you think you want, but not what you need. He says there's a war, and he goes on. Live such good lives among the pagans, that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits. He comes up and says, there's going to be people against you. There's going to be people in power, authority over you. There's going to be people that are pushing you. You just need to know something. Your job is not to be right. Your job is not to be known. Your job is not to be in control. Your job, our church's job is to do good. To be good, which is the purpose of the whole series. It's why we started last week. And again, if you weren't here, what we said last week was this. It's not enough. It's not enough to just follow the rules. That we said in a lot of churches, what happens is the churches are full of pastors and people that sit back and go, I'm a good person. Why? Well, because I don't do this, and 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 I don't do this. I got all the 10 commandments laid out. I don't sin, and I don't go there, and I don't look at that, and I don't drink at that, and I don't yell that or whatever. And they think that they're good because of what they don't do. But God's very clear. No, you're not a good person because of what you don't do. You're a good person because of what you do. And so we started this thing that says, listen, it's in all of us to do good. God's positioned you uniquely, wherever you're at, to do good. And it's why we're doing this initiative for the shoes, because we want to do good. God's positioned our church in a unique way to give back, to bless kids with something so simple, and yet if you were ever in high school, you know the importance of shoes, to do good. Peter's writing this, and he says, listen, you need to do good in light of chaos, in light of the world swirling around you. He goes on, no. Here's the offensive part. It starts to get offensive. Submit. How many people like that word really quickly? Just pause. Anybody? Everybody's like, that's my favorite word. I memorized it, got the definition. Anybody? Nope. Yeah, I didn't think so. No. It's offensive in our culture. It is. This isn't the most offensive thing he's going to say. He's just getting warmed up. But he says, listen, let me start the conversation. I laid the groundwork. There's going to be something in you. And the moment, especially some of you hear the word submit, something rises inside of you. I haven't even got to what he's talking about yet. But the moment I said that word, for some people in here, there's an emotional response. There's a desire to kind of push back, to fight back. And he says, listen, submit yourself to the Lord's sake, to every human authority. He just kind of owns it. He said, there's some authority out there. There's a government out there, coaches, teachers, bosses. There's authority everywhere. Pastors in some way. Your spouses. I mean, listen, Paul's very clear. Submit to each other. And there's not like authority as far. Paul says, listen, in 1 Corinthians says, you don't have authority over your own body. Your spouse does. So husbands, your wife has authority over your body. Wives, your husband has authority over your body. Submit. And again, when you hear that, when I hear that, there's something in me that kind of pushes back, that kind of goes, because we want to be in control. We want to hold it all together because we think we know best. Peter writes this and he goes, listen, it's not about you. It's for the Lord's sake. It's not for your sake. Because if you think your life is about you and you think your life is about making you happy and whole, and your whole pursuit, your end, your means is, I want to feel happy, I want to feel fulfilled, I want to get what I want, you will miss that mark every time. But Jesus says it very similarly in the Gospels. He says at the end of the day, you want to gain your life? Lose it. Submit it to somebody else. Submit it to a higher power. And Peter says, listen, your job is to submit. Your job is to whatever authority, whatever world is around it, to submit. And he goes on to say, whether to the emperor, you could replace emperor, just cross that out, put president. How many people are cool with that? About half the church probably. How many people can't stand that? The other half of the church. Yeah. See, here's the deal. That's why it's offensive. Whether to the emperor or the supreme authority. And as I say that, there's some people in here who you can't stand the current kind of administration, and you think, I would never do that. Why? Because you want to be in control. Because you were cool with the previous administration, and that was great, but the current one just, ugh. And just let me tell you right now, if you're sitting here and you're like, no, but the current one's good, let me just tell you, you're going to feel the same way in about 6 to 8 years. Just because if you look at history, it just kind of revolves. Just goes back and forth, over and over. Just wait long enough. That's what happens. But Peter comes in, he says, listen, it's so offensive. He doesn't care at all about your feelings. He doesn't care at all about what the administration is doing. He doesn't care at all about what your boss does to you, or what your spouse says to you, or what your parents are doing to you. He doesn't care at all. He doesn't even ask any questions, does he? He just kind of makes this blanket statement. Doesn't matter where you're at, submit. It's offensive. He goes on, though. If that wasn't bad enough. Or the governors, just so we're clear, just so you don't think it's just a high up. All the local, all the lower ones who are sent by him to punish those who do wrong and to command those who do right. And then he starts to wrap it up. He says this, for it is God's will. To which some of you go, whoa, time out. It's whose will? It's God's will. It's God's will that by doing good, you should silence the ignorant talk of foolish people. He owns it. He owns it and says, listen, at the end of the day, you're going to find yourself in a situation, you're going to find yourself in a position where you are under the authority of somebody you can't stand. They are hideous to you. They are repugnant to you. They are disgusting and disturbing to you. Peter says, you want to know how to handle that? Submit. And in the midst of submitting, serve. To submit and serve. Which, as I say that, and you're imagining who the emperor is in your world, because every one of us have a different emperor, don't we? Every one of us has different, maybe probably multiple emperors who kind of rule in our world, who kind of rule over us. Let me just ask you the question, because maybe you don't know who it is. Who is it that's above you, that has authority, that has influence in your world or in your kids' world? That just every time you see him or every time you hear about him, there's something visceral in you. There's something that comes out in you, and you don't think, oh, I like you want to do something. You've given authority, even if they have no authority, over your heart. So you can make an emperor about anybody. There's some people that they have no legitimate authority over your heart and your life, but yet they've done something to you or you've done something to them, and every time you see them, something comes out of you and you've handed them the authority over your emotions and feelings. And you've made them an emperor in your world. Peter says, you want to know the solution? It's so different. So different. He says, submit and serve. Do good. And you will silence them. See, what happens is this. Psychology tells us that anytime somebody does something to us negatively, we want to do one of two things. Fight or flight. We respond in one of two ways. For some, it's flight. We just run away, right? This is the husband who is struggling at home, and they get in a fight every night. So what does he do? What does she do if she's the one? They stay at work way too long, right? Because it's just easier to stay at work and win at work because you're good at your job and you're good there. So I'll just stay there. Why? Because I don't want to go home necessarily because it's just a big fight. So I'm going to run away from it. It's the person who goes from job to job to job to job. Why? Because my boss is a jerk, my boss is terrible, and he's an idiot, and he doesn't know what he's talking about, and if I was in charge, I could fix it, and da-da-da-da-da. What are you going to do? I'm just going to leave, just going to go to another job. And in the past 3 years, you got 14 different jobs. Or the person who's got multiple friends over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Why? Because the personality is not to fix it or fight for it or do whatever. It's just to run away. There's some people, you've got some emperors in your world right now, and they're past things that haunt you, and you can't keep a healthy relationship. Why? Because every time you start to get in a healthy relationship, it feels uncomfortable and awkward to you, and you just run away. Because every single one of us, we have a fight or flight mentality. For me, it's fight. And I love to throw down. Verbally, relationally, that's my go-to. I don't have flight, I have fight. I enjoy that. There is something weird, and I would just even say kind of sick inside of me. I like that. And some of you are like that. That's your go-to, that's your temptation. When somebody comes at you, you're ready to go. And what Peter says here is so fascinating because he says, listen, at the end of the day, you have two extreme temptations, fight or flight, but he said there's a third option, and it's faith. That it's not fight or flight, but faith. That in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of somebody over authority over you that's making your life miserable, he says the third option is to stay there and serve. To submit to them, to submit under their authority, not necessarily understanding it all, but serving them in the midst of it. Not bad-mouthing, not running away from, but to serve. It's not fight or flight, but faith. And here today, we got people, and you got emperors, and we got a broken world. And what I believe our world needs is not more people to stand up and post on Facebook and share memes and da-da-da. We need people who are willing to stay faithful, to stay in that marriage, to stay in that job, in that place, to not always cause problems and not always run away, but to just sit back and go, God, I don't understand it, but I know it's your will. I'm going to be faithful, and I'm going to let you do something in me. See, at the end of the day, you know what I've discovered? And I've had this, you probably had this. I've had some bad relationships in my life I've had some people really hurt me. I've had some bosses and people above me in organizations who've treated me poorly, who've lied about me, who've badmouthed me, who talked behind my back. I mean, listen, come on, every one of us, we've had those moments. You know what I've realized, though? That some of those are the biggest blessings I've ever had. That again, I'm so thankful that I was faithful and I stayed in some of them because the very thing that was meant to destroy me is the very thing that set me up for my future, the very thing that shaved off my edges, the very thing that kind of curved me, that kind of moved in me a little bit. Do you know that your spouse is the single greatest mirror you will ever have in your life? They will show you every flaw you ever have, right? If you've been married more than 3 years, you know that. And it can be so disturbing and so annoying. But if you let it, it can be the single greatest thing that ever happened. Because your spouse isn't afraid of you. Your spouse isn't intimidated and they have zero problem going, hey, you're kind of a jerk face. Why do you do that? And again, if you're not careful, you will do one of two extremes. You will fight and be defensive, or you will flight and run away. But if you can stay and be faithful, that's when God moves. That's when God works. That's when God does amazing, incredible things. Peter says, it's offensive, but Peter says, listen, stay where you're at. He goes on. Live as free people, but do not use your freedom as a cover-up for evil. Live as God's slaves. And I just want to pause real quick and say this. In our country that's built on freedom, that you can do whatever you want and you're free, and I'm nobody's slave and the whole deal. Listen, that's so true. And there's a great thing. At the end of the day, though, if you're a Christian, you're God's slave. That you have given your life, you've given your responsibility and what you're called to do to Him. And that's hard. There's a lot of people that live a life and say, yeah, God's chief, God's king, God's Lord. What are you going to do today? Whatever I want. I don't care what God says about my money. I don't care what God says about my relationships. I don't care what God says about who I should date. I don't care what God says about my church attendance or where I should serve or what I should do. I don't care about that. No. But He's Lord. He's King. I can do whatever I want. Peter's like, no, you don't understand. You weren't freed from sin so you can do whatever you want. You were freed from sin so you could serve a different master. Every one of us in here today, I don't care who you are. I don't care whether you believe in God. You serve somebody. You serve something. The trick is just picking which we want. Most people aren't in control of what they pick. But he goes on. He says, show proper respect, and here's the key word again, to everyone. I was reading this week and I thought, man, this can't be that hard. And then I realized it's incredibly hard. You know why? Because as I'm talking about certain people and positions, as I'm talking about positions like president or governor or senator or spouse or whatever, those are all positions, aren't they? A coach is a position. There's no person attached to that. It's just a position. But what happens is there's a person in that position, isn't there? And we tend to justify our actions not because of the position, but because of who the person is. And so we sit back and we say things like, you know what, I would be so much nicer if my spouse didn't make me so angry. I would work so much harder if my boss didn't treat me like garbage. I'd honor my parents if they just respected and honored me. I'd give back more money if they would give me some more money. I would do whatever. And what happens is we divorce our responsibility to honor the position because of the person. And we don't show proper respect to everyone. You need to understand something here. This is a core value at Riverlight. Every single person here is a child of God and deserves, I don't care what they've done, deserves your respect. Doesn't matter. And I know you got excuses, and I know you got justifications, and I know you got circumstances, and they're racist, and they're all these other issues that you got, and they're an idiot, and they took advantage of me, and they didn't. Listen, I'm not trying to excuse any behavior. I'm just telling you. In the midst of dealing with your emperors and your issues, Peter comes out and says, here's the standard. Here's what we're called to do. Show proper respect to everyone. Love the family of believers. And then what he says next is the most offensive thing, at least in this passage, and maybe one of the most offensive in all Scripture. He says this: fear God and honor the emperor. Fear God. Why? Because ultimately God's in control. Ultimately, God has it all. It says, listen, you want to fear somebody, fear God. Honor the emperor. Why? Because God put him there. And that's hard for some people to believe. God put that person above me. God gave me those parents. God gave us this president. God gave us that politician. God gave me that boss. Are you kidding me? That's hard to come to the conclusion of. But he says, listen, fear God. Why? Because in a moment, God can take it all away. I don't care what you have. Your desire to be in control is an illusion. You are in control of nothing. I just heard this morning a friend of mine had a heart attack yesterday. Thankfully, he made it through. But listen, in a moment, it could have all been over. You wanting to be in control is an illusion. It's not real. It's not possible. And you being upset for the people above you and whole deal, and I can't believe God would, and da-da-da-da. At the end of the day, Peter gives us the thing. He says, listen, if you can fear God, you can then honor the emperor. Honor the person. The problem is we end up trying to honor God and fearing the person, and we miss it. And we have so much fear because if they get in office, the world's going to go to hell in a handbasket. If so-and-so doesn't fix that, then the company's going to go down the drain. If so-and-so, if I don't train them up, if I don't discipline them, if I don't go there, if I don't take care of it, if I don't say something, if I don't, everything's going to be broken and we want to control it and fix it. So at the end of the day, no, you don't understand. God's in control. Fear God, honor the emperor. And for half of the people here, it's incredibly offensive because you can't stand the current emperor. Because the little emperors in your world, you can't stand them. And honor is not even in your vocabulary. Not because of the position, but because of the person. So, I want to wrap it up with 3 things I think you need to do. I believe that there are 3 things that you can do to help you honor, because honor is such an ambiguous thing. It's kind of fluid thing, like what does it mean? I kind of honor him or whatever. I want to give you 3 steps if you're struggling, which I believe all of us are struggling with honoring the people in authority above us that make us feel powerless. I want to give you 3. Number 1 is this: pray for them, don't talk about them. Listen, going on Facebook and sharing memes of your political party has never converted a single person, okay? Can we just agree with that? Like, I've never heard the story, Nick, I was a Democrat, but this Republican meme about guns, it converted me. It was the greatest thing in the world. I've never heard that story. It just doesn't happen. It's not helpful. It's only divisive. I wanted to call this sermon, Shut Up, okay? I didn't know if anybody would come back next week, but that's really what I want to call us, Shut Up and do something. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're called to do. He says, listen, in your silence, as you serve them, that's what's going to silence your opposition. But what do? We want to talk. Did you hear what so-and-so did last night? Oh, talk. Oh, that's a great meme. Share. Oh, they put that post up. What are you doing? I'm writing a 14-page essay on why this person's wrong on the internet. Oh, that'll help. It's a great use of your time. Yeah, good job. It's a struggle, isn't it? It's not respectful. It's a struggle. But your tension's like my tension. You want to be in control and want to convert and want to be right and kind of do the whole thing. And when somebody offends us, when somebody annoys us, especially when you feel powerless, we want to talk about our boss. We want to go to the water cooler or whatever that is and just, did you hear what the boss did? Did you hear that dumb mistake he made? Man, if I was in charge, I'd fix this dumb thing. The guy's a fool. That woman doesn't know what she's talking about. With her parents, especially if you're younger. You go to your friends at school and go, my mom, my dad, they're a bunch of jerks, and they won't let me do that, and they're a bunch of jerk-face and the whole deal, and they want me to go this weekend, they don't trust me, and they don't respect me, and da-da-da-da-da-da, talk. About everything that we do when somebody's in power, with that coach. It's about to be football season. I'm pretty sure Glasgow's ranked in state. Is that true? Yes, it is true. Anyway, so you guys all followed apparently. But, I just tell you right now, listen, I grew up playing sports, love sports. There's going to be some people bad-mouthing the coach at some point in time. He's going to make a play, and they're going to talk. But he's not playing the right person or doing the right thing or whatever it is. I would just suggest it's a bad solution. Pray for them. Because when you pray for them, It may not change the situation, but it absolutely will change you and your heart. That as we pray for somebody, as we pray for a situation, what happens is God in turn changes our hearts and our minds and our perspective and the whole deal. And as Peter said in the very, very beginning, the battle for your soul is not something outside and it's not a circumstance, it's your desires. It's your desire to be in control, to want to own it, to want to fix it, to want to change it, to want to control it. And so, when you are tempted to dishonor somebody else, when you are tempted to see a person you don't like and they're an emperor in your world and you're just, step one, pray for him. Don't talk about him. Number two, match your commitment to your convictions. Man, this is a huge one. Because we have a culture, social justice warriors are everywhere. Twitter warriors are everywhere. Just go on social media. People are offended by everything, aren't they? I mean, you can't pick up a bottle of water and not tick somebody off. Let's just be honest. I mean, somebody's going to be angry. You can't post anything and, a whole bunch of different issues. Listen, everything's political right now. And people have high convictions. Cool. That's great. The problem I see is your convictions don't match your commitment. And so what happens is everybody's offended. Nobody does anything. Everybody sits at home on their mobile phones, on the internet. What are you doing? I'm changing the world. Why? I'm just posting stuff. I'm so offended. Instead of getting out and doing something. Do your convictions match your commitment? That's a struggle. Because see, some of you right now, let me just break it down really weird, because I'm picking on social justice, but let me be real. Some of you are in marriages, and it's not the best marriage right now, and you have a conviction that your spouse should treat you better. Cool. But do you treat them the way that they want to treat you? Does your commitment match your convictions? Some of you are teenagers, maybe you're in college or whatever, and you just rail because your parents are still in power authority of you, and you can't stand it, they don't trust you, and they don't honor you, and they don't respect you, and they don't believe in you. Cool. Those are great convictions. But does your commitment to them, do you respect and honor and follow and obey and listen? Do you give them a reason to do all those things? Does your commitment match your convictions? Because a lot of times it doesn't. Oh, I believe that people should just share the wealth and we should just spread it all around and it should just be one happy family. Cool. But what I find is the people that say that don't do much of that. They're like, oh, no, but I need somebody else's money. No, I don't want to share my money. Like, no, that's a bad idea. I need more. Too often what happens is they don't match. My boss doesn't treat me with respect. He's a jerk face. But what happens is, do you give him a reason to be? Does your commitment to your job match the conviction you have about how your boss should treat you? Let me just push some of you. I didn't say this first service. I'll say the second service. Don't complain about your job if you post negative things about your job on Facebook. Really. Like, don't complain about Mondays and how hard Mondays are and how much how terrible your job is or whatever. And then also come back and be like, my boss doesn't treat me with respect. Okay, cool. That may be true, may not be. I don't know. But your convictions are not matching your commitment. There's a disconnect for so many of us. Last is this. Honor means submit. Most of the time. Honor means submit. That's a tough one. And most of the time, let me break it down really quickly. There's an Old Testament story where Daniel, he's a man of God, and they make it illegal to pray to God. And he says, no, I'm not going to honor that one. He did it respectfully, he did it privately, he did it quietly. He didn't post it on Facebook. He didn't make a big stink about it. He didn't try to change the world with it. There's a New Testament one where Peter is told, don't talk about Jesus, and Peter very respectfully doesn't yell at him, doesn't go, you're a bunch of idiots, and I can't stand you, and I'm going to do it anyway. No. He just respectfully says, no, I'm not going to honor that request. You decide whether it's better for me to follow you or follow God, but I'm going to keep speaking about Jesus. But at the end of the day, most of the time, honor means submit. Whatever it is, it's hard. It's hard. But here's what's motivating for me. When you find somebody that does all these three things, it changes the world. See, as I was thinking about this, there's a guy, you've probably heard of him, Dr. Martin Luther King. He was disturbed by administration. He was disturbed by injustice. He was disturbed by things. And here's the deal. I guarantee you he prayed for it. He's a man of God, and he did great things. His commitments matched his convictions. And at the end of the day, he honored and submitted. But he changed our country. He changed everything because he did it the right way. And you have some areas in your life that you want to see changed, but it will not come. It will not come with you being a jerk face and posting on social media and bad-mouthing to other people and talking and kind of wishing. No. It will happen when we get on our knees and we pray for those people, when we start to commit to it and we start to serve them like crazy and we start to love them like crazy and do what Peter says, and we submit to them in the process, that we have the faith to look them in the eye and serve them. That's what people don't understand. You want to mess with somebody? Let them be a jerk to you and then say, thank you. Can I buy you lunch? That'll jack with somebody. Like, really? You want to feed into it? Yell at them. Badmouth them. So, how do you not be a jerk face? Oh, it's tough. Honor. Honor the emperors. I don't know who they are in your world. I don't know who they are in your life. I don't know what you're walking through. What I know is there's some people in here, as I'm talking about this, you're arguing with me and you're thinking, no, you don't understand, Nick. It's too bad. My emperors are terrible. If you just knew the story. See, you keep thinking it's about the person, but it's not. Because I love how this story is written in. Historically, Peter, most historians say Peter wrote this about 63 to 64 AD, somewhere around there. Now, you may or may not know this, but the emperor at that time was Nero. And Nero was, you can look all this up, Nero was a pretty nasty fellow. Hated Christians. Burnt down 3/4 of Rome accidentally, blamed it all on Christians. Then rounded them up, put goat's clothing on them, bear clothing on them, whole deal. Put them in arenas, sent out tigers and lions. And the crowds roared as their bodies were shredded. Ultimately grabbed Christians, tied them up, put them on tent poles in his garden, and as he walked by, lit them on fire to use them as human light bulbs. And ultimately, he was the man, the emperor, when Peter was killed in Rome, upside down on a cross. I don't know who your emperor is. He's not worse than the one that Peter wrote about and said, listen, I know it's terrible. I know it's bad. I know you want to fight or fly away, but you're to have faith and follow what God has for you. So this week, I hope you start to change the world. I hope you become who God's called you to become. I hope you stay in position, not because of the person, but because of who God's called you to serve. And you start a movement. You start something in you at first. And it starts to spread, not because you're awesome, not because you control it, but because you start to lean into a Heavenly Father who has complete control, and you start to fear Him. And as we serve God, as we serve this community, as we serve these people, we will change this town. Would you all stand with me? I want to pray for you. Today is a heavy day, I know. If you're a guest, welcome. Next week we'll be happier, I promise. But I think it's important as we start to walk into a political season, as we start to walk into season where we're going to be spending time with family and things divide us or whatever, for us to remember that no matter what you walk through, no matter who the emperors are in your world, God is on the throne. He is faithful. He reigns, and He has you. And your circumstances may not change, but inside of you can. Let's pray. God, thank you so much. Thank you for your grace, your mercy. Thank you for your wisdom. Help us be different. Help us change this city in a mighty, mighty way. Not because we're awesome, but because you're awesome, because we have faith. Help us follow you and to submit to all authorities, all emperors that would surround us, and trust in your strong arm. Love you and thank you so much. Amen. Have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday.
I'm no longer slaves of fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child